Welcome back to What If Zuko Was the Avatar. Now, I was thinking that this would be the final part for the series, but there will be an extra part after this. However, today's video will cover the remaining storyline of Avatar dealing with Sozin Comet and Zuko versus Ozai. So, we recap in the last part of this What If, where Team Avatar has fought against Team Azula, in which they have won. However, Azula and her friends managed to run away. In the last part of this, the solar eclipse happened. However, since no one knew that a solar eclipse would have arrived, the first invasion of a Fire Nation capital does not happen. So, basically, after that, we get back into the story where Team Avatar has now decided to reside at the same location of Team Avatar in the original storyline, which is the Fire Lord's beach house, as Iroh, Katara, Sokka, and Zuko stay there for the time being. Now, I would like to say that there would be no invasion on the solar eclipse, since Sokka's father is not in the boiling rock, neither is Suki, because in this time they never met and they never had the invasion, so we don't need to cover that in the story. So, with that, the final week that they have Sozin Comet is spending time for mental and physical training for tackling our Lord. 2 days before Sozin's Comet, with Team Avatar currently near the house that is safe from the Fire Nation, Iroh decides that it is time to ask Zuko if he's ready to take down Ozai. Zuko says he is ready, but he's wondering how should he approach the Fire Lord. Zuko then says, "For my whole life I have been treated badly by Ozai. I have learned that he has gone on a path of no return. Whatever he does shall be his own doom," says Zuko. "I think the past year has been rough for you, Zuko. Although you had to make a lot of tough decisions, and I'm glad you have chosen the right path, which is your own destiny." Zuko then says, "Thank you, Uncle Iroh." "Alright," Zuko says, "it is time we start leaving for the day of Sozin's Comet. You plan to fight the Fire Lord, but what will you do about Azula? She is ready to become Fire Lord. I think we, Sokka, Katara, Iroh," says Zuko, "if you attack, I think the White Lotus has brought reinforcements for the war, and they also have backup for the airships." Iroh then says, "Even though it may not be the best decision to make, it is a very tough choice, as I can not help the White Lotus, as we will have to rely on someone else." After this discussion, the rest of Team Avatar is discussing plans to help take out Azula. Sokka, a little frightened, questions the idea of fighting Azula, as Sokka says, "Azula is crazy. We need to set up a plan." Sokka then says, "Maybe we could set up a trap." Katara, "Maybe we could use some sort of chain to restrict Azula, plus freezing water to trap Azula." "It sounds simple," says Sokka, "but it might be difficult if Azula figures out what we're doing, as we need to think this through carefully." Zuko says, "I think the idea is perfect." Team Avatar then decides to spend the hours and days remaining to get the chain. They decide that Katara carries the chain in a bag and pulls it out while fighting Azula with water bending alongside Iroh. 12 hours before Sozin's Comet remains. Alongside mental preparation for Zuko and Team Avatar, there's nothing else to really say for them. For Team Azula, Mai would probably know about Zuko, about how he's the Avatar, and alongside Ty Lee would eventually probably realize they should help out Team Avatar, as even though there was no boiling rock prison break, we will eventually see Ty Lee and Mai betray Azula. This might be bad news for Team Avatar though, as Azula is basically more powerful, as she never got betrayed by Mai and Ty Lee. So finally, the day of Sozin's Comet is here, and the White Lotus and their army is helping liberate Ba Sing Se. Since Iroh's not there, the army waits for Zhangjiang's command, as a similar event as Iroh launches a fireball at the wall. Zhangjiang charges his own blast as he breaks down the wall, and the battle begins with them doing similar events in Canning. nothing too different, as the same things happen even if Iroh is not there. The battle against Ozai versus Zuko is the most hyped up event in this What If series. So the fight starts off with a massive fire blast that burns down the forest, as Zuko arrives using airbending and firebending to help take down the ships, similar to Aang, although a bit differently. Just like in canon, Ozai burns down the forest as a test of common enhanced firebending. As Ozai lands on the rock pillars, Zuko decides to talk to Ozai. "It seems like I will have to fight you, father." Ozai then responds, My own son is the Avatar. I knew you were always weak, Zuko, and once I end you for all, no one will stop me." As Zuko gets ready to fight, he responds, "I knew you would never change, father, and you'll always be the tyrant that you are." As Ozai begins to firebend at Zuko, Zuko counters with his own firebending blast, as both firebending cancels out. After that, Ozai uses his fire wedge to get closer and attack using a fast firebending kick, with Zuko airbending this time and going on the defensive option. As Zuko traverses the landscape of rocks, he then thinks to himself, how could he take out Ozai? As he then sees a pool of water and water bends, as Ozai vaporizes it with his firebending. Zuko then charges his own blast while dodging Ozai attacks as he attacks Ozai, as Ozai easily counters it with him being pushed back by the force of it. Zuko then earthbends and throws pellets propelled by airbending, as Ozai uses his firebending to dodge it, although with some difficulty. Zuko then thinks to himself, every type of bending I throw at him, it just doesn't work. What should I do now? As Zuko, behind the rock, he earthbends the rock upward as he propels himself upward using airbending. As he lands on the rock, as he then shoots fire and air back at Ozai with two hands. Ozai, a bit caught off guard, uses firebending. As Ozai lands on the rock, he decides it is time for him to use lightning bending, as Ozai shoots it back, thinking Zuko does not know how to redirect it. Zuko braces himself for the attack as Ozai is smiling at how the Avatar will finally be out of his way, as Zuko then uses a technique Iroh taught him as he redirects the lightning back at Ozai. As Ozai is shocked, I would like to say that since the invasion of the Black Sun was also never planned or organized, Ozai does not know Zuko knows how to redirect lightning, and that is why Ozai is shocked. Now, would Zuko want to kill Ozai? Well, still no, because Zuko realizes that it would be a burden on his mind, and the public would probably have a negative opinion of his son killing his father. So, since he realizes this, he directs it in a way that should not kill Ozai, but should lessen the impact of the lightning. As it is redirected at Ozai, he then tries to firebend/block to get away as he tries to dodge it, but he still gets hit by the blast as Ozai falls to the ground. As Ozai is weakened, he uses his last strength of energy to hit Zuko as he is near, but Zuko just blocks it. As Ozai slowly fades unconscious, even with the amount of strength you have, you still fail to kill me, says Ozai as he goes unconscious. As Ozai finally ends up unconscious, he checks Ozai's breathing, and he realizes that he must seek medical attention for a sustained blow. With that, the fight is over as he checks to see if his pilot is nearby as he begins to fly in the ship, as the pilot is scared of Ozai's body as Zuko begins carrying it, saying, how did he defeat the Fire Lord? So then we head back elsewhere, where a fight begins where the strategy Sokka has planned using Katara's waterbending and Iroh's firebending, he manages to deploy the attack as they stop her from being Fire Lord. Azula then says, I see you want to fight. Even if it is you three against me, you will all perish as I declare Agni Kai, and this time it's a 1 versus 3. Iroh then says it did not have to be this way as he prepares to fight. Sokka then prepares his plan, and as Katara with her waterbending as Azul launches a massive beam of fire at Iroh. Iroh disperses it, but since he's not as nimble as Zuko, he focuses on his overall technique. Then Katara scans the arena as Azul notices shooting fire at her, as Sokka visually communicates with Katara to discuss their plan. As Katara uses her water bending to deflect the fire, it vaporizes instantly as she locates the same running water liking cannon, and Katara used the rest of her water to help fight Azula. As Azula decides it is enough, as she firebends some more, with her eventually using lightning at Katara. With no way to counter the attack, she is hit by the shockwave by the blast. As Katara runs toward her, Iroh tries to stop her, but Azul goes for a close range attack and dodges Iroh. So then Sokka and Iroh shout now as Katara uses her waterbending to let it rise and freeze Azula. Even though Azula's not crazy, she still falls for the same plan as she, at all costs, is going for the quickest kill. So she targets Katara as the main person helping Iroh, and then she will finish Iroh and Sokka. As Azula is frozen, Katara ties the chain around her, quickly capturing her as Iroh is relieved that they finished the plan without any casualties. Zul then says, "You think these chains will stop me? I will just firebend and break out." Just then, someone attacks Azula as Azula falls to the ground, as it is Mai and Ty Lee. As Azula hears their voices, she says, "Traitors." Then Mai says, "We realize that you are crazy and you really didn't care about us." Just then, an airship lands as Zuko arrives with an unconscious Ozai, and everyone is glad that Zuko is alive as he's carrying Ozai. Sokka asks if he's dead. Zuko then says no, but we'll need a doctor. I decided that Ozai must be kept alive in order to help with public order. As everyone celebrates, they leave with Ozai, who needs medical care, and Azula is put in a better place. So, one day later, everyone is gathered from the forces of the war. Zuko thanks everyone for the help that they needed in ending this war, as he says this war has been going on for far too long and has finally come to an end, as Zuko realizes he, as a person who has changed as a result of the people around him that have guided him to the path. Then he declares Uncle Iroh to be the Fire Lord, as Zuko realizes that the Fire Nation has the power to end tyrants through a process which stops leaders from becoming corrupt. And Zuko then says, no one will have to be fearful of the Fire Nation anymore, but be allies with them. The war ends as the series ends. Now, one last thing I'd like to say for the main story, and that there will be a part explaining what happened to Toph, Zuko, Suki, Azula, and Ozai. But besides that, this story of what if Zuko became the Avatar is the end, and I hope to create great what ifs like this in the future.